Synesthesia, a condition where you perceive two or more sensations from one experience. For example, you may look at a word and see a color. You might bite into a piece of food and hear a sound. I have synesthesia, and I can see colors by reading words or listening to music. And since Geometry Dash levels use music, I thought it would be neat to create a level using my synesthesia. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, I guess we can begin. I'm going to make a new level, and we're going to be using a song that I created called The Quest. 1, 2, 3, 2, 6, 6, 7. There it is. Here's the intro of the track, so that way you know what it sounds like. Cool, let's figure out how we want to start this level off. For me, this song is colored red, so I'm going to change the background color to a dark red for now. That's better. Feeling like a ship section would be nice to start us off with. I'm going to set it to the first group, and now we're going to use the alpha trigger to make the group invisible. This button makes the player start off as a ship, which is what we want. Since there's a giant boom at the start, we can make it 4 times speed, and I'm also going to go down here and I'm going to add a ship portal, and I'm going to check the box which allows us to see the ceiling and the floor. Now that we have all of that out of the way, we can start to build the level. For this part, I think we can have the ship go through a little corridor here. We can also move this up half a block. Now we've added speed changes, and we're going to move them down. Perfect. I think we could use these ground spikes. We'll give them a new color. We can turn on blending mode. Now we've got this nice light red color. I made them huge, it'll work. Put it all on a new group. Now it fades in. Now it moves. Let's duplicate it and flip it upside down, and now we've got some ceiling spikes as well. Now let's hide the player, let's turn the background effect off, which by the way are the annoying square particles. It's a little generic, but it'll work. Now I'm just organizing the triggers, so that way it's less confusing. Okay, so for this next part, I think we could use these glow circles, and we can make them shimmer. One will be this color, the other will be this color. After building this, I realized that it still didn't feel complete, so I decided to add some blue as well. Hopefully this works. Looks good, that's a relief. This is some sped up footage of me creating spawn loops, which make the colors flicker, which looks like this. Cool. Now I'm going to turn on hitboxes, and I'm going to grab a saw, and we're going to scale this saw up to around here maybe. We're going to make it invisible by adding it to group 1. And now, as you can see, the glow is an obstacle. You can't hit the red. Now I'm just making another. Oh man, this is going to be a gigantic hitbox. I don't know, I just feel like there's something missing. I have an idea. What if we use these slopes, and we set them to the blending channel, and then we just make a little design? It can be a bit abstract. Copy paste. It doesn't look noticeable. Nobody will know, except you. This has to be on a separate editor layer than the ground spikes. Let's move this over here. Now I'm just changing the opacity. I just don't want it to be too bright. Now we're going to use a move trigger, and we're going to just have this pattern move slowly to the left. We're going to add some glow on top of these, just like so. Nice! I guess we can move on. Okay, for this part, I want the player to go into a dual section. The idea was for the bottom player to become a cube. However, that would be really hard to make. I started by creating platforms that move like this, and then I spent a lot of time making sure that it worked properly. Here's the end result. For this to work, you can't click, so I made an indicator. Then I added another part of the gameplay which looks like this. Unfortunately, this brought more bugs, and I had to spend more time fixing them. But after I got it to work like this, it was finally working the way I wanted it to. Because I wanted to add a saw in the middle. I added some dots as warnings, and then I added some on the next part as well. This looks extremely cool when it's sped up. I then modified the gameplay so you have to be holding the entire time. If you aren't holding, then you'll crash into the saws. Next part, we're going up. Well, actually, we're going to make this cool swirly thing before we go up. But now we're here. This is pretty much how I depict a door creaking open in Geometry Dash. I didn't really know what to do here, but I ended up settling on this square orb that you have to click on to get past this wall of spikes. After spicing it up, I moved on to the next part. I took this smoke effect from a level that I'd created before, and I added it into this level. I really like how this turned out. Then I added some waves because they worked. Then I added some glow pulses. At the end of the part, the player is going to move down because the music does as well. This part of the song uses a piano as the main focus, so I decided to change the color scheme to match the melody of the piano. Now it was time to make the block design. I created this design which I ended up scrapping. Instead, I took these blocks, separated everything, and then created a design with them. However, was this really what I wanted? Oh, wait a minute. We can just set it to nothing, right? Yeah. Ooh, wait a minute. Ooh. Hold on. That looks cool. After creating this block design, I added one more thing to it, which was this block, and with the right color, it made this cool pattern. Then I worked on the layout, and then I added the decoration. After reworking some parts of the gameplay, creating decoration for the spikes, and adding some smoke that I would eventually speed up later, I felt really happy with how it turned out. The next section of the song is a build-up. The first thing I did was create some background colors. Then I began to add some rotating shards to the build-up. I feel like it worked very well, and I also felt like it matched what was in my head. For the last part of the build-up, I created this, which actually syncs to the music, which I think is pretty cool. Then I added speed lines to increase the intensity, and just like that, the build-up is pretty much done. The last thing you hear before the drop is a vocal. This vocal is also very widely used in dubstep, where the person who's talking is pretty much asking the DJ to just play the song already. That's what I made for that. Now it's time to make the beginning of the drop. I spent a while making this effect, which works because the drums don't come in until after. As you can see, I added some smoke and some glow, and after that we were ready to get into the drop. I began by making some simple gameplay, including this dash orb, which flings you into this UFO portal, where you have to click on more dash orbs. And you might be wondering why I'm making such curvy gameplay. Well, it's because we're going to be adding more saws. I created these three, and then I stacked them on top of each other to create the first obstacle. Then I made another, and now it looks like this. I forgot to play the drop, hold on. I hope that didn't destroy your ears. Anyway, I started to make things move. Things were feeling pretty good with these saws, so I decided to move on. I decided to make this, which I then duplicated, and I used each one to represent these growls. And with a bit of pulsing, it was looking good. Then I created a giant glowing saw. It was getting hard to make it look good, but then, in the end, I was able to make it look very nice. Then I made the next couple of saws. Then I made a similar part with a couple of changes, and here's how it looks. The rest of it's pretty much the same, so I'm going to show you a montage. Here's what we just made. For the next part, I wanted to make a dual section. I ended up thinking of this, which worked with the music, but the problem was the gameplay beforehand was making it really difficult to transition into it. That was alright though, I could deal with that later. I started working on the last quarter of the drop by creating these ramps. Since this part repeats a lot, I copy-pasted them, and I ended up with this. Then I made the colors change, created these bouncy lines, and added a flash for when the snare hits, and the final version looks like this. Since the song loops 3 times, I'm just going to show you what I made in between the fills. I created this, which I don't even know how to describe. Pretty much, you have to hit 2 orbs, and then you're sent back into the loop. The next fill might be the coolest transition I've ever made. I created 2 club step monsters that you have to jump through. I also returned to quickly fix this transition, then I went back. My idea was for the player to hit the ground. Then the ground would rotate, and the player would smash through it and become a wave. I added more saws, and then I added some speed lines, and I felt pretty happy with this. And now, the final part. Okay, well the truth is, it's not as intense as that. In fact, it's only 2 jumps. After those jumps, you get thrown into one last wave section, and then you're pretty much done. And now, I think it's time for the showcase. Hope you enjoy. And there we go, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. The level is up on the servers as well, so you can go play it. I also want to give a big shout out to my first few channel members as well. Thank you so much. And with that said, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.